Hey, how's it going, everybody? Matt Houston here, and today I'm going to talk about why I play D&D and why you should play Dungeons & Dragons. The short answer is that it's fun, but this feels more like a cop-out answer, as you can really use that for anything that you want to do as a hobby. The long answer is much more elaborate, and I'd argue probably a little deeper. But before I can answer that, I need to first answer, what is Dungeons & Dragons? Depending upon when you started playing, you may actually have a different answer from person to person. Someone who's been playing since the 80s will tell you it's a war game. That's the games that Gary Gygax and his friends would often play. And as a result, it was a war game that was focused much more narrowed down into the individuals within the war. The original concept for this, of course, was just a single crawl through what would be considered a dungeon to get into a castle for a war. I actually hold this opinion. I think combat, given the way that the game is presented between the Player's Handbook, the Dungeons Master Guide, and the Monster Manual, these being the three main books that you need to get, and then anything beyond that is created is the adventures, and the adventures are pretty combat heavy, leads me to believe that this is a combat-driven game. Most forms of experience are also granted through combat, and as a result, it means that combat is the main focus. That isn't to say that it can't be something else as well. Others see this as a game of very heavy into improv and storytelling, and with some battles on the side with it. And both of these are actually correct. This game is really whatever you want it to be, and that's kind of what makes it unique. That does have baked in rules, but at the very beginning of the Dungeon Master's Guide, it says, these rules are just guidelines, play the game however you want. Why do this over card games or board games or video games? All of which I love to do and I play regularly, by the way. In order to answer this question properly, I need to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you two, actually. Our job was to get in, break the prisoners, our companions free from the prisons, and then leave. There was only about 3 or 4 people, I think, that were in the cells, and all of them, I think, except for 2 of them were NPCs. But the main job of here, of course, was to get in, get them out, and leave. Of course, nothing ever goes as planned, and we show up at the compound, and we think we're hidden. Turns out that there's an entire squad behind us, and we're heavily outnumbered. To the point of, no, we don't fight this. This is a bad idea. What do we have to escape? Well, there's a druid that doesn't really have any answers, except bear form, so there's that. We have a sorcerer who just misty stepped and then turned invisible. We have the rogue who had spider shoes, so ran up the side of the building and onto the roof because it wasn't actually that tall of a building. We had a cleric that knew dimension door, so, well, they just popped up onto the roof of the building as well and took the fighter with them who had zero spell casting options at all. And then there was me, who was playing the Hexblade. I had one answer, which was the Blink spell. So just to give a brief outline of what has happened here, there are 5 characters outside of a building surrounded with 50 feet of wall behind them. 2 end up on the roof. 1 ends up in the forest behind the squadron. I blink out of existence onto the ethereal plane, where I'm actually not even touchable at all. And the bear, who is left there by himself. We knew that they weren't out to actually kill us. They've been trying very, very hard for the last 3-4 sessions to capture us. And our dungeon master thought he had us. He thought, there's no way I can get that you can all escape. He was right. There wasn't a way that we could all escape. But he didn't think that all but one of us would escape. And the one that didn't escape was the bear. The bear could soak extremely large amounts of a toxin that he was using to put him to sleep. So they spent a ton of time trying to tranquilize this bear while we went and did our own thing. The rogue, of course, starts doing rogue things, hopping through the ventilation system. The cleric's just kind of hanging out on the ceiling waiting for us to, get back to him. Because with the blink spell, you can only move 10 feet through the ethereal plane, I asked my dungeon master, so what's on the other side of this wall? Because in the ethereal plane, you can see. He goes, that's the prison cell. So I appeared in the prison cell with the guard looking straight at me, and I scare the hell out of everybody. Next thing I know, of course, I walk towards the glass, stop, vanish again. The rogue drops down from the ceiling, kills the guard, and I appear there and I go, oh, well, that works. Cancel the spell, unlock the doors. Now the two other players are like, oh, well, we weren't expecting to play this early, but this works too. Meanwhile, our dungeon master's sitting there scratching his head going, I did not think that this would happen. I expected, some of this or something like that, but nope, not everyone but the bear. Meanwhile, they're trying to drag this oversized druid that is now a sleeping bear through the front door, which is large enough, but he's not light. Signal the cleric and the fighter to come down where we are, and we just start tearing up the place from the inside out. We were able to limit their numbers, able to fight them on better footing. Worked out great for us. Good time. The dungeon master told us that he had prepared for a long list of scenarios in his head. He prepared for 100 scenarios. What do? The 101st. We ended up in a desert from a crashed airship. I think it was actually a spaceship from an alien invasion, if I remember correctly. Now, my character Braum was part of a guild called Dirk and Company, run by Dirk and his company. Before I had joined, however, shortly before I had joined, in fact, they had taken out a lich. They didn't destroy his phylactery, unfortunately. They never found it. A little bit of background, this cleric had showed up in the cells that we had broken everyone out of. Now, prior to that, Joe had been playing a fighter. Now, this fighter didn't really mesh well with the party on a personal level, so he eventually just picked up and left. And Joe kind of wanted to play a new character anyways. Enter Father Kindle. Now, this man was actually quite helpful to us very regularly. We didn't have a lot of healing in the party, and then we were really starting to struggle without it. Having a cleric in the party was a greatly valued resource and highly welcomed. Now, after ending up in the desert and fighting, I want to say some griffins, and surviving that, we had settled down for camp. Now, I had gotten pretty beat up that fight. Without an additional fighter in the party, I was the main bulk of our team's defenses. Now, the Hexblade in 3.5 at that time had a lot of ways of keeping himself alive compared to the modern Hexblade as a warlock. They also were pretty similar in casting levels, but the big thing that made them different was I believe they had more health relative to other characters. Now, Braum was designed to be much more of an in-your-face kind of character anyways, so he was quite good at dealing with foes and being the bulk of the team's defenses, and as a result, he relied very heavily on Father Kindle to keep him in good shape. So a bond was kind of grown there. The amount of damage that I took in that fight led me down to below 10% health, if I remember correctly. I was pretty beat up. Playing the ignorant fool that Braum is, by the way, Father Kindle had gone into his tent with him, and I had agreed to, remove the armor so I could receive proper healing because he was going to use a salve. Turns out that Father Kindle was actually a cleric of the death domain and was loyal to the lich that my guild had destroyed. And he was seeking revenge, and he thought, might as well start here. And then a fight ensued in the middle of the night while everyone else was asleep between myself and Father Kindle. We all knew something was wrong with his character, and we were all waiting very excitedly to find out what it was. But I never would have guessed that it would have been a cleric loyal to a lich that my company had destroyed that would come after me. With it being combat, others of the party did wake up, specifically the druid, because the druid can hear everything. And we were able to fend off the cleric of death without another party casualty. We were able to steal all his gear, and as a result, we moved on with our day, and I'm pretty sure he played a paladin after that. I can't exactly remember, because the campaign ended a few sessions later. Now, I could go on, and I could bring up other experiences, but that is probably one of the best experiences that I've had in D&D, and that is a solely unique experience. You can't get that in a board game. You can't get that in a book. You can't get that in a card game or a video game. Sure, you can get put in a good plot twist. When you don't realize it in the moment until it happens, that's an experience that's truly unique to Dungeons and Dragons. And this was something that was plotted between Joe and my Dungeon Master. And I think that's the real reason I play D&D and why a lot of people play D&D, is for the unique experiences that you can't get from anything else. So, why should you play Dungeons and Dragons? Because it will be an experience. And it will be an experience unlike any other that you have had. And it will be fun. Plain and simple. So that just about ends this video. Thank you so much for watching. Do make a comment in the Troll's Nest on the underside of this video and tell me, what is your favorite D&D story? I told you mine. I'd love to hear yours. As always, like this video if you did. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss another video. And until next time, guys, have a good day.